Welcome to another edition of Living with Purpose. Today I have the brilliant Claudia, who is the founder of Stellr. I'll talk a little bit about what she does, but I got to meet Claudia Miclaus in Romania at a conference, and I was completely drawn to her. And the reason I was drawn to her was the energy and vibrancy she brought. She was actually a moderator for the conference. She was the host. She was introducing everyone. And it was just such a joy to see somebody bring in that energy into what she was doing. So I have tried to build a nice little friendship with Claudia Miclaus, who is the CEO of Stellr. She's a strategic advisor, a speaker, a consultant. She works with CEOs and founders and executives around their personal branding. More importantly, she loves snowboarding, and she is actually a disc jockey. So I just want you to get a full picture of an individual that works with senior executives around their image and personal branding, but she loves to be on the slope, and then she loves to go to a disco and play music. So please join me in welcoming Claudia.
Thank you so much, Akhtar. I'm very grateful for the beautiful introduction you just made. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, Claudia, tell us about yourself. You grew up in Romania, I am assuming. And then talk to me about your childhood, where you grew up, your parents, just the environment in which you were raised.
So you are correct. I was born in Romania before the revolution of '89. So that gives you a little hint about my age. But yes, I have been born in Transylvania. So that's the middle of the country in Romania. And I have attended school in Romania. Both of my parents are fully Romanian. I'm not, any kind of interesting mix. And I ended up leaving Romania with a scholarship from university. And ever since, I didn't necessarily look back. So I just loved traveling, and I just loved experiencing, being in different ways or in different places around the world. But initially, yes, I was born in Romania. I attended school there. If you have any specific questions, feel free to ask.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about the town that you grew up in. What was the environment like? What were your parents doing? How was school for you?
Okay, I was born in a small town called Alba Iulia, let's say about 50,000 people. My dad was a police officer, and my mom was working in IT.
Police officer, IT. Wow,
Yeah.
What a combination.
Yes, for sure. School was very difficult for me. I never really enjoyed staying in school because I am so dynamic and I'm so energetic and I like so many various different things as per your introduction. So for me, school was definitely a challenge. I was a good student, but I didn't enjoy being in school.
So what were you studying? And then any siblings, friends? What were some formative moments for you while you were growing up?
This is such an interesting question because I had so many different people around me growing up, but especially seeing my dad. My dad is a natural native strategist. So I just loved being around him and seeing the way he thinks. Every time something was happening, I could see the way he was thinking. And I was like, man, if I could just think like that one day, because I could see how he pulls information from all these places together. And it was just like phenomenal to me. So definitely seeing my dad and the way he, his thought process inspired me a lot. My mom is a natural caregiver. She's just a super loving person. She's just there, no matter what. I have an older brother. He's 4 years older than I am. And I just attended, like normal school. And in my high school, I went to a French class. So I was studying probably like 7 different topics in French. And that was a little bit challenging. Of course, I'm fluent in French and I'm fluent in other languages as well. You already know me. So I speak like 5 different languages. And when I went for uni, I decided to go for two different subjects at the same time. So I graduated economics for 3 years, and I also graduated 4 years of law. So I did the two things in parallel at two different universities. And then I went for two different MBAs. One was language and communication in business, and specifically for conflict management in organizations. And the other one is sustainable development. So I graduated both MBAs as well. And then I left Romania and never returned.
And so which universities did you go to in Romania?
I started in Romania at University of Alba Iulia. And then I got a scholarship to University of Huelva, and this is somewhere in south of Spain. And then, yeah, that's where I finished. That's where I graduated.
And then you finished, and where did you first land up? You just left Romania, and where did you go?
So I left Romania, and I ended up being, oh my God, you're gonna, this is a serious thing. I became a barista, and I ended up doing coffee for £200 a week, and I did it for about 2 or 3 months. And I was very proud of it because I learned English. This was happening in London, and I'm speaking about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
That's how I started out, because I didn't have a clear idea about what I wanted to do, because everyone around you tells you should be this and you should do that. But for me, it was never really clear other than following the direction of my parents. But they didn't really work for me because I was a rebel. I wanted to discover for myself what I actually want to do and not just follow a direction that someone thinks might be good.
So you are now in London, coming out of this small town into this major cosmopolitan urban environment. How was that? And what shaped your eventual thinking into the kind of career path that you landed up doing?
Well, London was a very short experience for me, and I was just very happy that I was able to speak English every day, because my experience with speaking English at the time was just based on movies and lyrics. So being there and, being able to speak in English, of course, helped me a lot. But then I went for an internship. I ended up being in Caribbean for like 6 months. And then I ended up being in Italy for some months. And then
And what was the internship on?
This is so random. At this stage in my life, I was just saying yes to various different things that were coming. I was not really intentional about what I was doing. So in the Caribbean, basically, I was focusing on selling luxury sanitary products. But for me, the most important part was that I was able to be in the Caribbean, in the island of Curaçao, for those who know. So that was the experience that I wanted to have. I was in my early 20s. I didn't really care.
Yeah. And then that got you then to Italy.
Yes. So, yes. You're asking me all these questions who are not necessarily professional. So I don't necessarily know where you want to go, like how professional you want to go, because
I think I want to tell your life story.
yeah.
That is who we are. It's our life.
Yes, indeed, it's our life. So I ended up being in Italy singing in a piano bar.
So you are also a singer now.
I was always a singer. Singing is my coping mechanism.
You never sang for us.
Well, it was definitely not the right environment, but yes, I always sang. Singing is a coping mechanism. It helps me regulate my nervous system. My mom always used to say, Claudia, when you're stressed, you sing, and when you are happy, you also sing. So singing is just part of what. Yes.
And it's just such a wonderful insight, right? That because it activates so many different parts of you. It's your brain, it's your ears, it's your voice, it's your body. The singing does a lot more than one just thinks it does. So that's just so fascinating. And now I can see the connection to what you're doing as a disc jockey. And now you're trying to love that there is this melody in your head that allows you to function. So singing, Italy. And then how did you move on from there?
I did it for a couple of months, and then I decided, okay, that's enough. Now I speak Italian. You can imagine that one of my main things was that I need to learn Italian within those months. So I actually studied Italian, and I was there for 6 or 7 months. And when I left, I was almost fluent in Italian, and I still speak Italian to the day of today. When I left Italy, I ended up going back to Spain, and I was there for a couple of months. My life kind of just went very seasonal. Every season I was somewhere else. For example, when I was in the Balearic Islands, I was part of the opening of the first Hard Rock Hotel in Europe. Things started to become a little bit more serious and professional for me, even though I didn't necessarily want it because I wanted to continue to explore life. Fast forward, I ended up in Switzerland and I was in Geneva for quite some years. I was sharing my life in between Chamonix in France, where I was snowboarding, and in Geneva. So fast forward, I ended up in Atlanta, where finally I had serious jobs going on. I was working for a fintech company. And from there, you kind of know the story. But in Atlanta, in America, was really the experience that really shaped me into who I am today, and showed me that I can be an entrepreneur, that I can build companies, that I can do hard things, that I can have beautiful results. So America for me was probably the number one thing. It was kind of like a peptides. I went to America one person and I returned a different person.
And in Atlanta, you went to Atlanta, you said, right? And what were you doing there?
I was working for a fintech company.
Talk a little bit about how did that then translate into what you do today?
Well, the interesting thing is that while I was working in Atlanta, I also co-founded multiple projects, or I co-founded a project for women in tech because I was in tech and I was in communications. I'm a native communicator. I actually didn't realize how good a communicator I am because it comes so natural to me.
Right.
But being in Atlanta, I ended up having, I don't want to call it an identity crisis, but it was kind of like an identity crisis. And I asked myself, what am I doing in between all these engineers, me trying to figure out everything? And of course, I got in therapy and I did everything that one normal developed human being does when they deal with similar situations, right? You get in therapy, you try to get as much help as you can. I went for all the leadership development programs that I found, self-expression programs. I invested tens of thousands of dollars in my kit in the US during that time. So I ended up doing this personal branding development program from California. And it was not my intention to start the company out of it at all. But it became a company. And I started to talk more openly about it on social media. And someone from the Romanian government reached out to me and he said, hey, I see that you're into personal branding and I need help because the campaign is going to start. And I'm like, okay, I can help. So he was actually my first client. That's how it started. I didn't even look for my first clients. They came to me. I just started to openly talk about it.
For our listeners, here is this value, right? That you may feel inhibited, that I can't do this. But if you talk about it, and that's a wonderful way of actually saying, look, I just used social media to just talk about things that I wanted to do and I was doing. And that allowed me to get self-confidence, and through that self-confidence, clients. Just a wonderful way that there is an informal way in which you can show up. And there are many more opportunities than just trying to say, here's a traditional way to gain clients.
Yes, for sure, Akhtar. I cannot emphasize enough on how important it is to openly talk about what you do. Because we grew up, or especially I to talk about myself, I grew up thinking that I have to be modest, that it's not nice to talk about the things that I do. But to be honest, modesty, your competitors will always take your clients if you are modest. So you need to talk about the things that you do, because else no one knows that you exist. It's mostly about that. You can be amazing in your room, but if no one knows that, if no one knows about you, they don't know about you, there are consequences to that.
Right. And especially for women out there, this is even more critical.
I agree.
Because generally people all try and feel that, we've got an imposter syndrome and we shouldn't show up that way. But the important thing Claudia is saying is show up with your authentic self.
Especially that I think there is some data behind imposter syndrome. Of course, there's a lot of data behind it. But some of the data actually says that you will always feel the imposter syndrome. Because when it's not about one thing, it's going to be about the other thing. So if you overcome doing it when you're afraid, it's always going to be there,
So you started your company, or it became a company, and then you moved out of the US, or you built a company in the US?
The company was never registered in the US, but I did start to work and develop the idea in the US. I have returned to Europe in 2021, and ever since I am based here in Europe. When I initially returned, I was in France, and now I'm based in Barcelona for almost 2 years now. So yeah, the company was never registered there. Now it's registered here. And we also rebranded from Brand Capital Advisors into Stellr because I see where the industry is going, and I wanted to make sure that we are positioned for the new technological advancements that are going to happen they're already happening, but everything that's gonna happen, with AI and everything in my industry. So it's a tricky industry as of right now, because I really think that if we don't embrace and adapt, it's going to be tricky to stay alive.
Let's just talk a little bit about that as to what you mean by it and your industry, particularly in brand management that you're talking about.
Brand Capital Advisors, my initial company, was focusing a lot on power positioning for executives and CEOs. What that actually means in easier terms is that we take care of the entire digital and online reputation for CEOs and executives. So all this digital appearance, public relations, all their profiles, all the messages, everything they say or they don't say, there's a strategy behind everything, right? So we are one of those companies. I refer to this as being traditional personal branding, traditional PR. Now, where the world is going with AI, in my opinion, all this is gonna move towards AI influencers, AI digital twins, or AI digital replicas. So we rebranded into Stellr, and now with Stellr, we're doing all these things. And we created partnerships with tech companies and AI companies who actually develop these platforms. For example, in terms of digital replicas, think about being able to chat with someone's brain while that person is not there anymore. And I'll give you a concrete example. There's, someone needs to step down from a company, right? A company got acquired, and maybe this person is in his 80s, right? So we are actually now able to create kind of like a ChatGPT type of chat, but you don't chat with ChatGPT, you chat with the brain of this person. So you develop an AI, it's like a digital replica of this person. And basically you take all the information that is online available about this person, and you structure it into this replica. And then based on interviews to specific questions, and this takes hours. It's not just something that you do very quickly. It takes hours. You're able to build a digital replica so that every time you have a question, you can just go and ask that specific chat without needing to have access to that specific person, because maybe that person is not even alive anymore. So this is one thing that we focus on. The other one is AI influencers, and I really think that this is one of the use cases of the future, if I can talk about it that way, because an AI influencer can work for you and represent your company and be the public face of your company and can sell for you 24/7 while you don't do anything. You just train it, you prepare it, and then this AI avatar, this AI influencer can sell for you 24/7. Yeah.
So for those that are listening, and if you have any interest in getting into this space, that I don't know what will happen to my brain in the future and how people will use it. But here is the opportunity with Claudia to actually systematically figure out how you can do this and present yourself in the most effective way. So talk just a little bit. I'm so glad you gave this very specific example, maybe without mentioning the client, as there may be client privilege, confidentiality issues, but some interesting things that you're working on, besides what you've just mentioned, right? And something that is giving you great joy.
Well, something that is giving me great joy doesn't come from work, Akhtar. It comes from my passions. It comes from me learning how to DJ. It comes from me, spending time with my friends over a nice dinner. That's where my joy comes from. Of course, I do enjoy my work because it's something that I chose, right? But my joy comes from doing everything I want. No restrictions.
And that's just such a wonderful lesson, right? You get joy for doing things that you want without feeling restrained. So, for those of you, especially some of the younger listeners, find your inner calling and focus on that. So, Claudia, let's turn to purpose. Why is purpose important to you? And how are you showing up with purpose? Because I know that you show up with purpose in all the other things that you do, but I also know you show up with purpose in your work.
I think, of course, everyone has very different definitions of what purpose is. And along my life and along my development, this definition has changed for me very multiple times, not once, but very multiple times. And the current definition of purpose right now for me is exactly what I said before, is doing everything I want. Of course, without affecting anyone else or without, this is all about me as a human being, right? So my purpose for me is just to say yes to the things I want, because I arrived to the conclusion that being against myself and being against the things I want is actually not helping me. And that's when I fall out of alignment. So for me, purpose means to live in alignment with myself and say yes to all the things that I want to do. That's the reason now I can publicly talk about me being a singer. That's the reason I can publicly talk about me learning how to DJ. I'm no longer hiding these things. Before, I used to hide these things because I was afraid that if I show my creativity too much, I will lose my clients or people will look at us with different eyes. Right now, I'm not doing that anymore, and everything starts to work better because I am more aligned, because I say yes to the things I really, really want. So then everything just flows, right? So this is what purpose is for me right now.
And, this is, again, it kind of goes back to your authenticity, right? How do you show up with authenticity, and how does that actually help drive the decisions you make? So as we end, give me your one golden nugget, a piece of wisdom that you want to leave our listeners with.
My one golden nugget for you, Akhtar, is do it and don't look back.
Claudia, thank you so very much for being part of the podcast. Again, to our listeners, purpose is this constant sense of energy that continues to drive humanity forward. Live a life of purpose. Thank you very much for listening. Until next time, Claudia, thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you, Akhtar. See you next time.